So this is my Heyo, my Judge Evie list Heyo tonight. Hope all you're doing well out there, watching or hanging with us here, living for crits. There's Greg. Yep, I'm here, and it's just me. So sorry about that. And the chat's all kind of funky right now. I don't know why. I don't know why my Twitch thing is acting up, but oh well. Anyway, yep, Judge James, living for crits here. Judge Evie is at a musical tonight. It's been like a lot of musicals this year. So, she was in, what's it called? Sound of Music. I'm wearing actually Judge Jen's hat from Sound of Music. My hair is a complete disaster tonight. I felt earlier I looked kind of like a brunette version of Doc Brown. So I thought I'd wear Jen's hat from being a Sound of Music usher because it looks so stylish, And so Evie's been in the musical, and then this week she is actually at a musical. She's seeing Waitress right now in Philadelphia. So with that going on, it's just me. And last week Jen was out, and so was Evie on Sunday, and I was supposed to do a show of my own last week, and I slept through it. So that's where I was last week. And I've sort of been on a social media pause, so I haven't been on Twitter to announce any of that stuff. So I apologize for that. This is all my fault. But yeah, so you got it's just me tonight. So there you go. On the gaming front, yesterday we continued our Chain Coffin campaign. I have now finished with my group every Chain Coffin module that takes place in the Shutter Mountains that is not the main Chain Coffin adventure, which we are starting this Saturday. So we're like it's taking us 5 or 6 sessions to get to this point. The party is now 6th level, and the players are a bunch of folks I play with pretty regularly. I mean, everyone knows. I think Andy Line and Mark Plord in that group. They've been in other things, features and stuff with me. The characters. The characters in the game are from various various campaigns I've run over the years. Like Andy brought a character from a home group we had years ago. It's all in the same world, so it works. My friend Shannon's playing his Lankmar character who teleported to the Shutter Mountains in our Lankmar campaign. So it's been a pretty fun group so far. Oh, and Judge Joan from the Order of Shannon podcast, she's actually in it as well. She's in the campaign as well. She plays Hilda the halfling has the foot of Kevna is one of her artifacts. Her character's foot is like a magic jade foot. So anyway, it's been a fun game. I'm looking forward to starting the main part of that module, and I hope to have a review of that box set and book and everything at some point. And thank you, Mr. Citrus. I dig the hat as well. Actually, I don't. It hurts like hell. It's really rigid, but it looks okay, I guess, on camera with my my Mr. Rogers sweater here, my Cobra Kai shirt. So I thought I'd give an update on my module progress right now. So I have done, after my complete tally, I own 48 DCC modules that need to be finished still. I've completed 97 of the 145 modules I own. And of that, I'm down to my last one DCC Lankmar module. I just have to finish the Greatest Thieves of Lankmar, and that's done. And I have 2 0-level MCC adventures to run still, and I'll have run all of my MCC published modules. So there you go. And then 42 DCC RPG regular modules that have to get done. So anyway, I'm moving along there. That list is getting smaller. It actually gets bigger, because originally I wanted to complete like 35 modules in a year or 40 modules in a year. I ended up just adding and adding and adding to it. So anyway, so there's the completion report. And I'm gonna do Judge Evie Presides by myself. I have one question here I can do. I can't do the rap because I'm not gonna try that without Judge Evie. And yes, Eddie Frankenstein, I am alive. I am here. I am present. So this is the part of the show where you can send questions to Judge Evie at dccjudgeevie@gmail.com. During the intermission of Waitress, she sent me over a question from Brian McKay. Greetings, judges. I guess just judge tonight. Back home in Australia, where it's slowly turning into autumn and it still feels a lot like summer. Questions for your consideration. What is a game or an adventure you have not played in a long time that would love to get back to the table? I don't know if I'm going to say adventure or more like a genre. I'm really kind of missing playing in a western. I'm kind of scratching the itch a little bit in the Shutter Mountains in that it's has that Appalachian feel and it has the bluegrass feel, the setting in a way. And as a kid, as I said before, I vacationed in southwestern Virginia and western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. So I have like a connection to that part of the country, and my grandmother was from down there. But I kind of want to go further west. I'm kind of missing doing some westerns, and as Eddie said there, weird frontiers. I'm really itching to play that in setting form at some point in the near future. I have two books coming. I have the main book and I have the leather-bound edition coming, and I really am missing westerns. This weekend I watched Hateful Eight for the first time, as I've never seen it. So I thought that would be on my list of things I wanted to see. So I watched the extended edition on Netflix, which is like 4 parts. Wasn't what I was expecting. It takes place mostly in one room, and it's gory as hell, which it's a Tarantino movie, so I guess that's to be expected. But it was in some ways slower than I would have liked. Like, I do love modern westerns. I really enjoyed Django Unchained. I liked the new True Grit. I really, really loved. I know it didn't get a lot of love, I guess, but I really liked the new Magnificent Seven that was done with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt. But my favorite of the modern stuff is Deadwood. So this morning I watched the Deadwood movie again. It's like the 3rd time I've watched it. I've seen that whole series, the 1st through 3rd seasons, at least 3 or 4 times. I've watched the whole way through. So I really, really miss the Weird West and all of its grittiness. So hopefully Weird Frontiers, can come soon. I have the PDFs for it. I've demoed the game. I play tested a little bit of it. So I'm looking forward to play it some more. So that's a game, or that's a genre that I've not played in a long time. I'd like to get back at my table. I wouldn't mind playing some Deadlands again too, but I still have a strong feeling like Deadlands and Savage Worlds plays much better in person than online. And since most of my gaming is online, that's a real hard one for me because you have the bennies, you have the playing cards, it's a game that just screams out for miniatures in my mind. The combat system does. So I'm gonna wait until a day comes when I can play some Deadlands in my house. What are some of your favorite big bads, villains, or monsters you've used in some of the climactic battle scenes in your games? Okay. I'm trying to think of big bads that I've used. My favorite big bad I've ever used in a con game was in one that I wrote, which was Dungeon Battle Delco, where I had Gritty appear. The mascot from the Philadelphia Flyers. That was a module where I created a false big bad. So one of the problems that happens in DCC modules pretty typically is that, in the last battle in a DCC adventure on a con, usually your party's wizards or clerics, or your wizards, and your clerics too, are going to either spell burn if it's a wizard or luck burn if it's a wizard or a cleric, all of their points down to really knock out the big bad with a totally supercharged spell. And that's why for that module I created a false big bad in that they thought they were fighting at the very end. What the heck was his name? Foles. It took place in Philadelphia. It was very Philly themed, and there was a Nick Foles wizard character. So Nick Foles, the quarterback who won the 2018 Super Bowl for the Eagles. He appeared in the module, and they went crazy on him. And every time I've run the game, they went crazy and knocked him out of the real quickly. But when I ran the game in playtests, I mean that's what happened. It was a pretty easy battle because the wizards just juice up their magic missile to death and whatnot. So what I did for the con was when Nick Foles was destroyed, out of Nick Foles came Gritty, which was a much worse, more deadly big bad. So I really enjoyed having Gritty appear, and all kinds of weird Gritty attacks and stuff. I think I have my old blog post somewhere, the stats for Gritty. So that was a pretty cool big bad that I've run. It was very memorable. And then other than that, I mean, the single most memorable big bad is going to be in a game that's not DCC, and that's my Rana, 100+ sessions, 1st to 30th level D&D 4th edition campaign where the player characters killed Orcus in the end. And that was pretty amazing to me because we made Orcus just a big central point of the game. The players won. One of the players was playing a tiefling bard, and his dad was Orcus, and he found out halfway through the campaign, so they had to kill his dad, and it was a really good end boss quest, So I think just because of how much of a build up there was for that was very memorable as well. So both were good questions there. We have one more question, and I see some questions in the chat. I'll get to those in a second. For Judge James, I'm intrigued by the idea of Ardna in Empire of the East. Could you talk about how using AIs as patrons works in MCC, and could you use Ardna? Sure. So, I mean, Empire of the East, I had the book out for a reason. This is the setting based on the official licensed books of Fred Saberhagen, and Ardna is like a computer program or an AI that is running in the background. It definitely is a patron. The book here does not do a lot to stat it up, but it wouldn't be hard to use the same type of rules. Essentially, Ardna is an AI that can grant skills and abilities to characters, just like patron AIs do in MCC, and they work very much like patrons for Patron Bond spell casting in DCC, if you're familiar. So essentially, if you want to tie yourself to a special entity in DCC, you cast a spell called Patron Bond, and you get access to different abilities and magics that that patron can grant you. So if you if you bond to the King of Elfland, you may get access to a spell that lets you mess around with time. Or teleport, I think it is. There are, and you don't have to be a wizard. My friend Andy his thief Walden is bound to Bubugbabills. So he has a spell that gives him frog legs. That's a pretty fun spell. Or gives him froggy form. So in MCC, the shaman class is tied all to patron. So all of their spells are based on what the patron AI give them. And the patron AI are like computer programs running in the background. And you could think of them as, they're sustained by nanotech in the air, or possibly they're being broadcast out. All of my MCC campaigns take place on my own version of the Warden called the Augustin. So my campaigning in MCC, the way I use them is that the AIs are just they are computer programs running in the background, and they can communicate with their spellcasters through different data ports and things like that. I don't have a shaman in that. I didn't have a shaman in that campaign, at least not more than one session, I think. So they didn't play a big role in our campaign. We did a very manimal and mutant centric campaign in that game. So that's how Patron AI work. And you could definitely use Ardna in your game. So I would definitely recommend reading the Empire of the East books if you would like to get an idea of or like a different take on science fantasy. Personally, I not my favorite series. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the first story, the one with the elephant, right? The essentially the tank. The most I think of the series. I think it's 4 books. I prefer the Dying Earth stories by a wide margin. But I mean, there's some stuff in there that can be milked for your games. Eddie Frankenstein asks, have you or do you want to play any Cthulhu games? If so, which was your favorite? The only Cthulhu stuff I've ever played, but besides the fact that Cthulhu is a deity in DCC and my wife's character, the wise wizard McBride, in our Friday night DCC game back when we lived in Pittsburgh in 2017. She played a character named the Wise Wizard McBride, who was a cleric, because that's how my wife rolls with her characters. That just makes so much sense, right? The Wise Wizard was a cleric of Cthulhu. So that was, I mean, I did that, and then I injected some Cthulhu here and there into other games. Like I had a little bit in my in a Savage Worlds campaign I ran. I had the Realms of Cthulhu book for Savage Worlds. So I had a few Cthulhu Lovecraftian encounters. I remember my campaign was called Clockwork. It was about time travel. It was very Doctor Who-ish. It was about the idea that anything that seemed supernatural had some kind of real scientific or pseudo-scientific feel to it. And I had a color from the Color Out of Space that appeared in this English village the players had to deal with. So that was the thing. I have not read a lot of Lovecraft because I don't really like Lovecraft. I really have a hard time reading the stories. I mean, it is so. I know there's some folks that really that have a great deal of respect for the stories, but have the issues with the guy. I have a hard time separating that. The guy was like a horrifically racist psycho, and I have just I knew that before reading the Lovecraft, so like it was really hard for me to get into the stuff that he wrote. I prefer some of the Lovecraftian stuff that other authors kind of throw into their games, like I think, or their stories. To that stuff, and for that reason, I'm not. It's just not my thing. There's other reasons too. Like I don't quite find it scary. I don't quite understand the concept of it. In general, I don't find super godlike, powerful, supernatural creatures to be scary. I think humans are far more scary than anything like that. Like even my type of horror I like. I mean, I would never watch like a Lovecraftian horror movie, but I do like stuff like, Hostel and Saw. So that's more my style, which is probably more disturbing than anything else. But anyway, if you enjoy Lovecraft and stuff, that's awesome. And if you like those stories in Cthulhu, that's great. This is I'm not speaking negatively about anyone, obviously, and I know that it has an influence, as Greg said, in so many other settings, and I know it heavily influences Weird Frontiers, so I will be interested to see how that works. Mr. Citrus says, Western game related, have you ever tried the Warband skirmish game Tombstone? Black Scorpion Miniatures makes some great minis to accompany the game. No, I have not. Nor have I played the Great Rail Wars, which was, I know, the Pinnacle Entertainment Group, the folks that did Savage Worlds and did Deadlands Classic, which I played for years. First, they had the Great Rail Wars, which essentially influenced Savage Worlds in its build. So I've not really done any skirmish gaming with those. The only skirmish game I've ever really done, honestly, was Mordheim, and then Fairy Meat, and then falling into Frostgrave, and that's it. That's my complete miniatures gaming outside of playing BattleTech and Crimson Skies, which is how I did all my miniatures gaming in college. Is pretty much BattleTech and Crimson Skies until I discovered Mordheim, which I played a lot in the early 2000s. Although none of my friends had their own warbands, I had to pretty much provide every miniature for it. It was very expensive, and I didn't have money. So now that I have the money to buy a warband and stuff, and I don't have the time, or I still have people to play with, at least not in person. So So anyway, so good questions, everybody. Appreciate them. Again, you can send questions to dccjudgeevie@gmail.com, and hopefully Judge Evie will be here next week to be on the show. So I thought tonight I would talk about how I have picked what I'm going to run for some upcoming conventions. So Romance of the Cyclops Con is around the corner. It's May 13th to 15th. And Gen Con, I've had to submit my events for Gen Con, and I've signed up to run 6 adventures, over the next several months. I'll be running Beneath the Well of Brass, which is an adventure at Harley Stroh, a 0-level module at Harley Stroh at Romance of the Cyclops Con. And I'll be running Tomb of the Savage Kings. This is by Stephen Newton. This is a 2nd-level adventure for DCC. And then at Gen Con, I'll be running more Stephen Newton stuff. I'll be running They Served Brandolin Red, which is a 0-level adventure for DCC. And I'll be running The Accursed Heart of the World Ender, which is an adventure by Brendan LaSalle, also a 0-level funnel for DCC. And then there are 2 adventures in the back of Empire of the East. There is an adventure called Invaders, which is a 0-level Empire of the East funnel, which I plan to be running that as a hex crawl. I have a way I'm going to change this up a bit and turn it into a hex crawl adventure, I have a dry erase hex board I'm going to use. I'm going to throw a bunch of the weird stuff at Empire of the East. I'm going to throw a tank in there, maybe an elephant in there. Yeah, then there's an adventure in here called the Demon Key that I'll be running as well. And I'm running both of those as 1st-level modules, not 0-level modules, because I just want to have some 1st-level stuff. So that's my setup, and I guess the question kind of comes down to what am I going to run a 0-level funnel at a convention or a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd-level adventure? It's usually a decision I have to make for myself, and that's where I like to be, either funnel or 1st, 2nd, and 3rd-level module. And it's a question of prep. On one hand, like the nice thing with a funnel is I just have to go to Purple Sorcerer and print out stacks of 0-level characters, and I think that brings its own level of fun and excitement. And cons are a great place for funnels because everyone's just, the energy is high, crazy things are happening. So I enjoy them, but I also like running higher level play as well. And I think for me, 2nd level is my favorite level for con games. You're showcasing what the characters can do, as the character classes can do. You really are showing off a lot of what makes DCC. It's just as outlandish in some ways, but it's more focused than the funnels are. It's just more prep because you really want to create some decent, characters. You can use this Purple Sorcerer for them if you want, but sometimes if you want to do something more tailored, it's a little more challenging. I don't really go above 3rd level very often. I have on occasion done a 4th level module at a con. I've had mixed results with higher level modules in con games, mostly because you start to deal with what's the experience level of the players in the group. So you start to want to, I think at 4th level, the classes, the spells, it becomes a lot for someone who's new to DCC. So I think you start having issues with, especially with, I find with warriors, and wizards obviously, but warriors especially with the deed dice and how that works. Anything higher than 4th level, when you start doing multiple actions, you really can bog the game down. I feel like the 5th level and up, it works so much better if the players really know those characters and know what they're going to do every round. Otherwise, you're going to have a really slowed game, especially if characters have your 6th level, 7th level, 8th level, multiple actions per round, and you have a table of 6 or 7 players. Your combat's going to take a long time. And if you are trying to run an adventure in 4 hours, you really can't have that many combat encounters, like fulfilling combat encounters in that session, without it having the same issues that a lot of RPGs have. They just bog down in higher level play. DCC is no different. So that's a challenge in the conventions. So why did I do so many 0-level funnels with this in these con games? Because I usually don't run more than 1 or 2. The reason is because I have a lot of funnels left in my quest to finish all my modules. So I wanted to narrow that list down. And so I also I had on my list to finish both adventures in the back of Empire of the East, and this lets me do that. So Yeah, I guess I'm just a lot of this is about wanting to finish my stack of modules. Um, One thing this year is I'm not writing anything I've written myself. And I'll probably get back to that at some point. I've just not been in a place or a mood to write something and showcase it at a convention. I really enjoy running published modules. It's been something, especially during the pandemic and now wherever we are in this post 2020 weirdness. It's been something that's really brought me a lot of joy, is kind of reading and preparing modules by other people. I've really learned to just to find love and happiness in the writing of other game designers. I love finding the differences between something that Michael Curtis has written compared to something that Stephen Newton's written, to Harley Stroh's written, to Brendan LaSalle's written, to all the folks that write the awesome DCC stuff. And and I especially love whenever I run something that Terry Olson's written, and it's just, it's murderous on the player characters. A few years back, I showed up at Gen Con with a whole mess of stuff myself to run. It was the year I ran all the Star Wars stuff I wrote myself for DCC Star Wars, and there was the year that I ran the Dungeon Battle Delco adventures with co-GM with Judge Evie. That'll happen again at some point in time, just not now. So anyway, that's why I'm running what I'm running. So I think we're going to move on here to Kickstarter shoutouts. So there are 2 DCC or MCC Kickstarters out right now. I'll post these in the notes. There is the Time Law Citadel that's going on right now, and Smoking Wyrm Monograph 2, The Hangman's Garden. So I'll post those links in the YouTube video. You'll see those. Or you can just go search them. Just type those in, you'll find them. Actually, you go to the Goodman Games website and you scroll down the right-hand side. It tells you what current DCC or MCC, Kickstarters are going on. Road Crew shout-outs. So again, Romance of the Cyclops Con is May 13th to 15th. Come play Beneath the Well of Brass and or Tomb of the Savage Kings with me. And you can find us at I Live for Crits on Twitter and Living for Crits on Instagram. And my outro ASMR is just gonna be Saberhagen, because he's a cool last name. I think, Fred Saberhagen, that's a pretty badass last name. So, wow, this went pretty quick without Judge Evie here. Or wait, no, it didn't. 28 minutes. It wasn't quick. It took longer. What the heck? It just felt a lot faster because I was talking the whole time. All right, so anyway, be safe, be healthy, be kind. I went out of order in the ending. I will see you all with Judge Evie hopefully next week. Good night.